Okay, is this working? Can you help me? I think Chris is going to try to figure it out. There it goes. Alright, welcome to the Ada Developers Academy info session for the August of 2017 application window. So our window does open next Monday on the 21st at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And this will be for cohort 9. This cohort will start in February. And we're so happy to have you all here. And I'm basically going to give the floor to the panel to talk about themselves. And then I have a few questions for them. And then I will open it up to you all as well as people watching it online. So.
Hi, I'm Diane. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm from cohort 6, and I currently work for Uber. Hello, I'm Olivia. I am identified she, her. My cohort was cohort 7, and I'm interning at Nordstrom Data Vision.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm one of the instructors. My pronouns are he, him.
Hey, I am Tanisha. I identify as she, her, and I am cohort 8, so we just started a week ago.
Hi, Anya, cohort 5, she, her, and I'm currently working at Microsoft.
Hi, my name is Marisol, cohort 7. I identify as she, her, and I am currently interning at Amazon Customer Technologies.
Hi, my name is Cynthia, I'm the executive director, she, her.
And my name is Karika, and I'm the program coordinator of the Ada Developers Academy. And my pronouns are she and her. So my first question for the panel is, what piqued your interest about the Ada program, and why did you choose to apply?
Okay, so I came to the Ada program from Massachusetts, and I first heard about the program, I think through some friends, but my partner is also from this area, and we just wanted to move back. And they kind of encouraged me to look into the program as like a way to transition into a new place and start a new life. I was also really drawn to, out of all the programs that are here in Seattle, I was really drawn to Ada because they have a really great commitment to a very diverse group of students. And I really liked how their mission statement also stated that they were interested in like non-binary and gender non-conforming folks to join. And also there's like a lot of perks to like joining a program that is a nonprofit and has free tuition. So that was kind of my interest there, and also technology, but yeah.
By the time I had heard about it, I had been planning a career change, a risky career change. And up to that point, have been in creative arts, both professionally and through school. was really interested in sciences and was considering doing a complete 180 or career change just practically. Like I'm a parent, and it was sort of time to like make that shift. And so practical concerns kind of won out. Living here in Seattle and then learning about Ada's network, what is offered, the length of it. A lot of these things kind of answered what I was looking for, and then came to or was watching the info sessions and was totally went over.
Hi, I was interested in coming to teach at Ada because I believed in the mission. I wanted to come here and make a difference in addressing the diversity problems in tech in Seattle. And I wanted to come here and help people transform their lives.
I took, before I joined Ada, I took like a 1-year sabbatical from like jobs that I did not like at all. And I started traveling internationally. And while I was traveling, I started teaching myself like HTML and CSS. And I was like, oh, I can do this. So when I got back to the US, I started looking at different boot camps. And Ada, the biggest thing for me was that it was so inclusive and diverse. And like many of my identities can be affirmed as a woman, as a person of color, and how those things were really important.
For me, well, so right before Ada, I was a stay-at-home mom for 6 years. And before that, I worked as an industrial engineer in Mexico. So then I immigrated, and I had to like stop my career. And I was looking into getting back to work, but I really wanted to become a software engineer. So I started looking at all the options. And so when I found out about Ada, I remember just thinking this is too good to be true, like what's the catch? And I started reading every blog and watched like 6 hours of info sessions. And yeah, I think everything, the format of it, it's genius. Like the length of the program, that you are so well prepared that it's not only, you know, a 2-month thing, it's, you get the whole full stack curriculum. And for me, mostly the internship was like the most important thing, because I had such a big gap in employment that having this 5-month internship in my curriculum definitely changed, opened a lot of doors for me. So that was the main thing.
Before Ada, I'd actually graduated college and then took 3 years off to travel. And after just traveling way too much, I moved in my position in my job to San Francisco, which allowed me to take more classes in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on the weekends, because I'm from Los Angeles and there are none there. And then I started looking into grad school programs, because I thought that was the only way that you could go and get a CS degree and then you could become a programmer. And in one of the weekend classes, somebody said, why don't you do boot camp instead? And I was like, what's that? And so I started Googling, and there's a ton in San Francisco, there's a ton in Chicago, Boston, New York, not many in LA. And I found one in San Francisco that was all female, and it was very expensive. And so I was like, well, are there any other all female ones, maybe down in SoCal, so I can live at home still? And then just Googling that, I found Ada, and I spent like an hour looking for the tuition price, and then I was like, oh no, it's free. And so I told somebody at one of my classes, like, oh, do you think this is a good idea? Like, they have a built-in internship as well. She thought it was weird that it was a year long. And that kind of solidified it for me. I was able to travel, I worked for an airline, so I was able to travel to Seattle and like check out the area. And I realized like, this is like too good to pass up. And so luckily for me, I applied and I got it done here now.
All right, next question. How did you prepare for the Ada program, including the application process?
Specifically for the application process, I had a lot of help with people looking over my essays specifically, because it's really easy to drag on and to say the same thing over and over again. And then with Excel, the Excel portion, I was a little more familiar with Excel, and so that was fine. And then when it came to the actual coding portion, which I think is the second level, it was just reading a lot of information and watching all the materials that they give you, because they give you a lot. And I didn't know many people that knew anything about coding, so I would just ask them, like, does this thought process make sense? Like, do you think that this makes sense? So I think it's pretty straightforward. The things that you really have to work on is making sure you have like your syntax correct. And then for me, getting prepared for the program, I honestly didn't prepare enough. And so I'm gonna be straight up and say that and just advise you, prepare as much as you can, because although it worked out for me, you shouldn't have to, feel like you don't know what you're doing, because there's a lot of information being thrown at you. So if you can be efficient with your time, I think you'll still, even if you don't do that, you can still do it, but I just want you guys to set yourself up for success.
So for me, preparing for the application process was a lot of soul searching, like thinking, what are my strengths, what are my core values, how do I reflect that in my application, and as she said, also like sharing my essay with the people that knew me. Does this reflect me? Does this sound like me? Does it show the best of me? And the spreadsheet part, spent a lot of time on it, making sure it was the best I could do. And once I got in, preparing for ADA itself, if I'm honest, the hardest part for me was the logistics of it all. When I started ADA, I had 3 children under 5, and I had an hour and a half of commute to get here. So just to get all those logistics, that was the hardest part. But yeah, I had a lot of support too, so it worked out.
So for me, preparing for the application, so with the Excel portion, I didn't know much about Excel at all. So it was like a lot of Googling how to like do Excel things. For the essay portion, I just wanted to make sure I told a story and like make sure that the person who I was like came through in that essay. And then for the actual like coding like interview challenge, I actually like had a stuffed animal and I like talked to the stuffed animal. Like I like told it my thought process, which sounds really strange, but like it worked. So I agree. I did not like. So I'm like week 1, day 2, or week 2, day 1, and like I probably should have prepared more. Like, but like they give you everything you need. So like it's not to be like, yeah, it's fine. It's not to be like to be scary about it, but like I probably should have like looked more into some Ruby fundamentals beforehand. Logistically, I came from Atlanta. Like I moved here from Atlanta a week ago or a month ago. So it was really hard. That portion was really hard. Logistics, but also setting expectations for like my family and significant others who are all in Atlanta. Like just letting them know like I may not be my best self as far as communication because I'm really busy. And that was really important to do.
The second that, because that's really big, managing your own expectations of what you're going to be able to focus on was a really big piece. And I had some support in that, I have a family. And I too had to teach myself Excel and just really make sure I knew what I was doing with that and wrote everything out, would revisit it, would put it down, put it away when it's driving me insane, and come back to it. And same with the essays. I feel I've had a few opportunities to apply to ADA to get that right. So by the time my final application was in that ended up with my acceptance, I had really thought through what I could give to myself, what this would mean, why I deserved to have a seat, and what I didn't like about prospective jobs. I really just got super, super like honest with what I felt my contribution would be. And the more I did that soul searching, the easier my actual story and less of what I thought Ada wanted to hear about what I could offer was coming through. And I really feel like that helped me when I met with Cynthia. And I think anyone who's going to do that and knows they want to be here, I think you'll really find that story there. That's how I prepared the essay part. Logistics, planning. commute, like think all of that stuff through ahead of time, especially if you're coming from out of state. I was lucky and was here. So.
Yeah, I would definitely echo pretty much what everyone said about preparing for the application, like just doing a lot of, at least for me, it was like thinking a lot about like why I wanted to do this program and like what I could do with this kind of like job or this career. And like to preface it, like I came from more so like the nonprofit industry. So like working in like art spaces as well, and like I was thinking a lot about like how I could like tie that into like some of the things I'm interested in, and how I wouldn't like lose myself in like this kind of industry. Because I feel like there's a dramatic change when you like make a career move, and it's like so very different from what you used to be doing, and like wanting to feel like a connection there. So thinking a lot about that, at least for the essay portion, that was like kind of what I was doing. And then with Excel, I didn't know much about Excel, so like I did a lot of Googling. The code challenge portion, I did a lot of like just like I learned a lot through examples and like doing it myself. So like a lot of Code Academy or like finding kind of Ruby tutorials or courses just to like get a sense of like the fundamentals of like the language and like how I could like utilize it in this challenge. And then as for like beyond the application process and getting here, I also like, moved across the country. So like planning out my drive with my cat and my partner and like putting everything in this car, like that was very difficult. And then thinking a lot about like how I would prepare myself for the rest of the year. Because I was also working in the nonprofit industry, you don't make a lot of money. So like financially preparing myself was a big part of like just feeling like I was ready for this. And also doing a little bit of like studying. Because I do think it does help if you can do it. Although like the curriculum is set up in a way that like hopefully you get like you've already had your feet wet right before coming to the classroom, and then like you can like jump into it and like like just get really invested and like prepare yourself for that investment. I think it's like the best kind of like mental mindset that you should have.
Alright, so our next question is for instructor Chris. Can you give us a rundown of the AVED curriculum and what a typical day looks like?
Okay, the broad view of the curriculum is we start with Ruby fundamentals. We do about a month or so, a little bit more than a month of Ruby. We move on to a web framework called Rails, which is still in Ruby, but building web applications. And then we enter JavaScript, and we move to and that takes about 2 weeks. And then we do about 3 weeks of a JavaScript framework called Backbone.js. And then you have a month of a Capstone project, where you work on a project using technology we have not taught you. You are teaching yourself to build apps. Students have built VR apps. Last cohort, somebody built a JavaScript app to control a drone. We build phone apps, web apps, all sorts of things. Typical day for the classroom portion is morning, we'll introduce material with lecture, guided practice, maybe some small exercises. And then in the afternoons, you'll have project time. We're giving you usually a week-long project, and you spend time working on those projects, usually divided out into waves. So they start an introductory wave, then a second, and then a third wave. And there's homework on the weekends. And it's pretty intense. It's a high intensity and high support environment. There's a lot of support for you, but there's a lot to learn, and we will push you. And like people have mentioned, when you do finish the classroom portion, after that, the next part of education comes in, which is the internship. The internship is intended as part of a learning experience. You're going to be learning how to function in a professional software team and in a company, writing production code. A lot of students are pushing features into production their first week or two.
Next question is for Cynthia. How can an applicant increase their chances of making it to the interview phase as well as being accepted into the program?
Well, we have many applicants every time. It takes us a lot of effort actually from a lot of our interning students and alumni to help us really review all these applications. And just a couple of things that I think really make a couple of these applications stand out. First of all, we only have so much time to review everybody's. Be your authentic self. Don't try to tell me what you think I want to hear. I actually really want to hear your stories, why you really want to do this, really big challenges that you've had to overcome, something huge that you've taught yourself, why you believe so much in this industry and diversity. These are really important things, and I would advise you to just speak from your honest self about those things and really think about a really good example that really illustrates your grit and your motivation. The problem-solving part is really meant to understand how you think. And so be very communicative about how you got your answer. In some cases, it doesn't matter as much whether you got it right or wrong. It matters more what you were thinking and what your thought process was. If something seems hazy or unclear to you, go ahead and make assumptions and tell me why you made those assumptions. You hear a lot of people at this table tell you that they dug through Google and they dug through search engines. Do that. Do that. Be relentless about trying to get to the best answer possible. That is really key. And I think in the coding challenge is really where we find out a lot about your passion for this career. People get nervous during the third phase of the interview when they talk to me about passion. I look at what you actually do to demonstrate passion. The time and effort you put into this coding challenge. Never mind how much you already know coming into it, but what you did during that time, what you actually accomplished, how you thought through the problem, the fact that you continued to think about the problem, even after that, the actual core questions that were asked, and the fact that you want to spend more time doing this. And I think a lot of that really does come out in that second phase. So.
All right. How was the transition from your classroom experience to your internship experience?
So I'm on week 2, day 1 of my internship. The transition I really liked the way they structured the classroom experience, because although it's very heavy in the beginning, basically the first, 6 months before your capstone, I really appreciated the last month, because you literally have to hold yourself accountable. You literally have to sit there. And if you want to get stuck on something for 3 hours or 2 days, then that's your decision. Or if you want to get up and ask someone for help or try to find help, then that's also your decision. And so that last month for me has mirrored a lot of what I'm currently experiencing at my internship, because it's just me by myself in this very large company trying to figure out who I need to talk to, what I need to do. And then when I figure out what I need to do, sitting there and trying to decide if it's too early to ask a question or if I should have asked that question 15 minutes ago. And so I guess my advice would be ask the questions, please, because just today I was working on something for maybe half an hour, and finally I asked someone on my team, not even my mentor, hey, what would you advise me to do? Always give them the power, I guess. And then he was like, oh yeah, let me come help you. And something that the doc said should take me around 2 hours took us about 20 minutes because he knew exactly what to do. And so I don't think you'll regret asking questions, is basically what I'm saying.
Marisol, I too am like day one, week 2 into my internship.
And I actually echo some of the same strengths that the final month. The final month when we create our Capstone project, we're pulling everything together that we learned, but because we are also creating something in a new language or using new technologies, a lot of it is how you learn to think through a problem that you don't do when you're looking at. It's that building that confidence muscle to know that even if you're going to look at something totally foreign to you, that you have this, you have the experience of having done it and having pulled through somehow miraculously. You just kind of take it step by step, and it's that practice of doing that Capstone really kind of makes you less frightened when you're walking in and being overloaded with things that literally make no sense. You have to go, actually, yes, they do. Think it through. And so it was a really great awakening to think, wow, yes, Ada did. I was so focused on the classroom portion that actually I feel quite prepared in a lot of fundamental ways so far. We'll see how it goes.
So I'm employed full-time by the company that I interned at. And when I started out there, I totally had no idea what, like, I knew what Uber did, but like I only used the app like maybe 2 times. So, and I was working on a team that doesn't work on like the app specifically. It was something like, I don't know, super infrastructure. Like there are some words that people still say that I don't really know what they mean. But I like what Marisol said about asking questions. Like that's, I think if Ada like taught me anything, it was asking the right questions and like getting to a point where I like knew when I should ask them. And also Ada taught me how to like Google search everything and like just research the crap out of things that I didn't know and like putting in the right like search terms and hopefully getting something out of it. But I think in terms of like just like the preparation, thinking a lot about just like getting yourself prepared for like a new intense environment and like I don't know, just like be ready for that and also think about like what are the best ways that you can like learn and being upfront about like this is how I learn, like this is how I communicate. Because that will be like immensely helpful when you're working on a team with like very different personalities or like a very different kind of like structure. So like know who to ask and like I don't know, just like think about how you would do that for yourself. Because I found that was kind of a challenge for me. Like I like reading things, I like learning through tutorials, and like maybe that's not what your internship has set up for you. So like trying to find those kinds of resources for yourself or like the right people to ask for help.
Okay, how was the transition from your Ada internship to full-time employment?
So the transition was pretty seamless for me. I'm still on the same team that I was on, and I still work on the same kind of project at Uber. So it was pretty, pretty easy. But there were some like different, like there are a lot of different changes, of course, when you move from like being just like an intern to like being a now like full-time like software engineer. Like the title adds a lot more responsibility. That sense of like you having to contribute more and like being more aware of how you're contributing to the project and like being aware of like now you're like an actual like I guess like more intense contributor. I don't know how to phrase it, but yeah, there's definitely that sense of like, at least for me, like nothing has really changed, but everything has shifted in a way, and now I get paid more, and so I have to like do more and like, like think about it a lot more and like, yeah. And I also sometimes feel like I should ask less questions, but maybe I feel like I can ask more questions now. like you know, like they see me as an equal, so I don't know. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, so I was also very lucky in that I was placed for my internship at a great group at Microsoft where I got a full-time offer to stay, and I'm very happy. But I do share a lot of the same feelings. Like, 1 month I was an intern and I was like completely relaxed, just learning, and the next month I'm getting paid this insane amount. and I tried to act differently because I pressured myself so much. Like, now I'm getting paid for real, like. But my mentor told me, like, you are very new. Like, most people in my team have been working there 10 to 20 something years. So he told me, you should still consider yourself as learning in learning mode. So I still try to keep the same mindset. Like, I'm learning. It's okay to ask questions, and just keep track of my own progress and look 1 month back and I say, oh, I've made a lot of progress, I'm good, and just keep going. But I share a lot of the feelings.
All right, so now we're going to open it up to you all, as well as our Twitter followers. If you tweet us at Ada Academy, we'll respond. So does anyone have questions?
Did any of you work while you were studying here?
I worked for the first 2 months, and I do not suggest it. Mine was a weird situation. I worked for an airline in Los Angeles, so I was literally flying home Friday night to work the 16-hour shift on Saturday, and then flying back on Saturday night to be here by Sunday. I don't advise it. I know some classmates that did work, but I think for me, the toll it took was you kind of need to set, like somebody said earlier, your boundaries. And so during the week, it was all class time, and the weekend was like my time to kind of catch up and also like a little sliver to relax. And I kind of took that away from myself by doing that. So for me, it wasn't worth it. But if you can work it out, I think that just depends on every person.
Speaking as an instructor, I think I will work you too hard to do a full-time job. So I would very much advise not working if you can manage it. There is a loan program available that's a low interest loan that you should look at if you need it.
I had considered, I was a boxing coach prior to joining Ada and considered teaching a class or two because it's hard to leave your life. And so part of me just couldn't identify with not doing that. But I'm also a parent, and I just kind of, I think I worked through the Jumpstart program. I don't know if you all are familiar with that. I went through that, and if you have the opportunity or if it feels right for you, I definitely recommend it. I worked through that and then decided, nope, this is not a good idea for me personally, so.
Sure. I didn't work. I worked on my homework. But I took advantage of like the loan program, and I'm really thankful that I did, because there's just no way for me to have like lived in Seattle, moving from Massachusetts and like moving away from the life that I had before, and then like trying to find a full-time job and doing this program. So the loan program really helped me, and I definitely recommend looking into it if you can.
Let's see if this works. Is it working?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Also, I've heard someone say that they nannied, and that seemed to go okay. But I think that's probably the only one. Okay.
Can you guys talk about maybe choosing, applying, and accepting your internship program?
So we have quite a few companies that basically come in as sponsors or
not exactly the same set of companies, every single cohort. Basically, they present, and we have a process where we match. So Ada basically runs the entire matching program, and Ada also makes the decisions about where students have their internships. We do ask students for their preferences. They've attended the presentations for their particular classroom and are able to tell us what they prefer, what they like, what they don't like. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we look also at the interview feedback from the companies. Every student interviews with, I believe, about six companies essentially. And basically, we use a combination of the interview feedback, the companies themselves. Some of them have actually worked with us for a really long time. And we actually know the type of person that will thrive and be successful in those internships. And we also do factor in the preference that the students has stated, but ultimately that's not the higher order bit. We at Ada view ourselves as the ones who basically decide, and these companies are all committed. They are all fundamentally good places and are all committed to finishing that training first and foremost. So.
What's the usual class hours?
Monday through Friday, you need to be in class by 9 a.m. sharp, and we end at 5 p.m. We do on Tuesdays and Thursdays have open tutoring available till 7 usually. And we also have tutors available when students need it. What's that?
Thursdays.
Sorry, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Thursdays.
Oh, just
special
Thursdays.
Release.
Oh, and you're right. And on Thursdays we have flex time. You're still assigned the same amount of work to do on project time, but you don't necessarily have to do it here. So you can schedule doctor appointments and things, and then work on things at home or in a coffee shop or whatever.
Have you guys had any students that is taking classes at home?
No, we really do want you here. A lot of our projects are pair programming or team-based, and it's really important to have you present in class.
So it's basically 9 to 5 is kind of a regular weekday office hours, because I currently work I work for the gaming industry, and it's regular office hours. So this basically makes it impossible for me, because my work doesn't really have a specific shift, but we try to be all together at like 10 to 4. So I was trying to see if the classes are only the first half of the day, maybe my work would work with me to just like allow me to work from like noon to however late I can work it.
Yeah, I understand. This is a joining Ada is a really big commitment. We will train you really, really well. We're going to make you great developers, but it does take time here, presence working. There's not a shortcut to it, unfortunately.
And I'm sorry. And the program how long is the program? 6 months?
So it's an 11-month program, 6 months classroom, 5 months internship. But I will emphasize the way it is fundamentally designed is for an in-person, collaborative, full-time program. So there definitely are other options out there that are evening only, maybe part-time, maybe shorter, to fit what people need and to fit what people want to do in order to make this career transition. But fundamentally at its core, this program is a full-time commitment for 11 months. That's basically the way it was designed and structured. That's the way we teach. And so it does require you to be willing to basically make that full-time commitment for 11 months as we teach you, support you, guide you, do whatever it takes to get you to that career by the end of that 11 months.
I was just wondering if somebody off the top think about like a project or feature or something that you were proud of building, whether it was like through Ada or your internships.
I'll do it.
So I can talk about my Capstone project. So before I came to Ada, I used to work as a zine librarian. Does anyone know what a zine is? It's like a DIY magazine. Yeah, so I used to like catalog all these zines and work with other zine librarians out there, and we would talk about like what the best, like we tried to imagine the best way to build like a union catalog so that all these libraries from all around the world could like use like one central catalog. And so for my capstone, I got to build something like that. Like I learned enough stuff to be like, oh, I can like build some sort of like very flexible database that would track zines even though they don't have like an author name or a title, just like a bunch of pictures stapled together. Like we can track that, and we can like track all these different libraries and like who might have this one like copy of this. So yeah, that was like really pretty cool to build. Like it's not like the biggest like cool thing out there like at all. I don't even think it works anymore, but like it was like fun to think that like wow, I like learned enough to like try out all these different technologies and like come up with some like minimal viable product. Yeah, MVP thing that like worked for a while. So yeah, and then at Uber I work on what we call chaos engineering, which is like injecting failures into production and seeing how stuff works. So like pretty much like taking a hammer to other people's stuff, and like that's pretty cool. And like yeah, I don't even do the hammering part, but like yeah, it's still a cool project to be on.
For my capstone, I really put Ada's support to the test. I was allowed to dabble in machine learning, a very small, limited version of it. For the capstone itself, I built a speech emulator, basically a bot that's trained to talk like you. And I had to build a hard-coded conditional speech emulator based on it, but deep in the woods of Ada, we were also attempting to train a model. And I had some advisors and some supporters within the instruction staff that believed in it and actually helped me do it and helped me get some extra equipment in order to do that. So that was really special for me because I enjoyed every second of it, even when it sucked. I really, really, that was very special to me. And there are a few of us who did some VR projects that were really special, and we managed to get some loaner VR equipment, and our instructional staff really looked bad for us. So.
So for my internship project at Microsoft, I worked on the Outlook desktop team. And my project was to add accessibility feature. So if you ever are using your Outlook desktop and you put narrator on, and now you can hear if you are on message 1 out of 200, that wasn't there before, I put that. I'm very proud. It doesn't sound super interesting, but it was shipped to tens of millions of people and it didn't break anything, so I'm really
For my capstone, sorry, I was not ready for that question. For my capstone, I decided to go and build an Android app because I love Android. And I'm a runner, and I've got followed and tackled, and so I thought, what do I do when that happens? I text somebody and I say, hey, I'm at Green Lake, and I should be here till 7. So I decided to try to streamline that by creating an app that when you opened it, it would ask you like where you were running, what time you thought you were gonna finish, and then you would select someone in your contact book to send that text message to. And so by hitting the start run button, the text message would go out. And then in the background, I had a task that was would check right at like, if you said 7, it would check at 7 to see if you had turned the app off. And if you didn't, it would send another text message to your designated contact to say, hey, Marisol hasn't turned the app off, so you give her a call. Which I was really excited about because I did it and it totally worked. And And hopefully, I didn't get to finish one of the features, which was to also send a picture of yourself, which I want to still work on and do, because if you do go missing, then you have like the picture to send to the news or whatever. And then just today, it's like so small, but I changed a link in our homepage and I pushed it and it got deployed, which is like, I was like really excited. So yeah.
How many professors here and how many students per cohort? And then also, how do you determine what languages you're going to be teaching, and then do you evolve that based on industry? So I guess that was 3 questions.
We have 4 instructors for 2 classes of 24 students each. We have a director of, what is Carrie's title now? Education, sorry, I thought it was wrong. Education and technology, who's a former instructor who helps develop the curriculum and lead us. So we teach Ruby and Rails because they teach good structured web development and programming, and JavaScript because that's the language of the web these days. We do respond to industry, like we've added Backbone.js because we need to teach a JavaScript framework, and it will evolve over time. It may shift to React or other languages.
I'm sure many people here feel like Ada is their first choice because it is just superb, amazing, all around. And hopefully we'll all get in. We'll all be the next. But I'm sure too that probably everybody here is saying, this is what I want to do and I'm committed. And what if I don't get into Ada? Can you give us some good practices for looking through all these other coding boot camps and things like that? What do you really look for? What should you look for?
Don't tell me you do research. So the question was around how you determine this is the right fit for you, or if there are any alternatives. I'm gonna say that Ada is unique in a couple of ways. I think everything I'm about to say exists in some form, in some boot camp. A combination of it is what makes Ada unique. So it is tuition free. It has an internship portion to it, which every single one of Ada's graduates swears by in terms of being so key to prepare for a job in this industry. I actually do not ever label it a boot camp because 11 months is not a boot camp. It's a career transition program. And so the way we conduct our training is not just the technical training. There's a lot of, there's interview skills, there's leadership skills, there's diversity, bias, self-advocacy training that we provide and embed all over the place in our curriculum. It's targeted towards women and gender diverse people. So it is concentrated on an underrepresented set of people today that we would love to see more of in the industry. So those aspects, that combination of aspects is what makes the program unique. As I said earlier though, it is full-time. It's a full-time gig for 11 months. So that doesn't actually work for some people. And so there are quite a few programs out there that have a certain variety. And there are other programs there that focus on different types of stacks. Some programs focus more on front end, for example, and put a lot of focus on that. We do full stack. We believe in giving you that breadth, and that's why we take the 6 months to really go in depth into a lot of that. So it is also, I will say, a very, very collaborative learning environment that really relies a lot on feedback being given, received, constantly working with other people. And so I definitely have met potential students who do not thrive in that sort of learning style. And so people who want to learn online, or people who want to be by themselves, and that's perfectly fine as a learning style. And there's programs that actually are online and very geared towards that. But we build software, a lot of our companies build software with teams. And so we believe that is an integral part of learning as well, and how we do projects. We're extremely project focused. And so first project, I don't know, in less than a week, even if it's an hour, that's where it starts. So, but there are definitely a lot of different options all around the country, many different strengths and what exactly they target. And so it just depends on what really fits into your style of learning, what you value, your financial circumstances, and how long you want to take to make this career transition, or what you're willing to do.
Also, I'll add to that it seems to be that typically the longer the program, the better. Is that right? Would you say? Maybe.
You can't shortcut your way to this.
And also you can reach out to the students of that boot camp to ask them their experiences. They'll tell you the truth. We don't tell our students to lie about it.
I want to thank all speakers for sharing this information with us, especially graduate students. It's very valuable. My question is back to application process. On the website now, there are requirements and questions published for previous cohort. And for us now, when we will have or they are still valid, or we'll have a new questions for essay, and when?
So the online application itself, I'll talk about the phase 1, which is the online, and then the phase 2, should you make it that far. So the online application itself, the essay questions never really change. They're pretty similar, if not the same, from cohort to cohort. The problem-solving questions, the data question does change. It does change, so it's not the same as it was in the last cohort. So so that is definitely different. I mean, definitely, I think a lot of the tips and guidance that the students and alumni will give you still apply. And there are many of them, many 80s on Twitter that are more than happy to give you a lot of the advice and a lot of the tips and tricks that they felt were helpful for them. Those definitely still apply, but actual questions and the data set we use will vary. And then in phase 2, what we actually do is we give a new coding challenge at every cohort admission, but we put the previous coding challenge in Jumpstart. So if you work through the Jumpstart program, the exercises, I forget which module it's in, do actually reflect and contain the previous cohorts coding challenges. And those are also really, really good practice. They're excellent practice things to go through.
Yeah. Just to clarify, from today we can work on essay, right? To apply in a week when a window will open.
So we have not opened that section which lists out all the questions online.
And okay.
So if you remember them for some reason last time, then by all means, the essay questions are very similar.
Okay.
The data questions are different. You can Jumpstart anytime. It's there the whole time, even when we're closed for admission. So I encourage everybody to just get going. And that's a very good set of modules to make it through. If you're not sure if this is the right career transition for you, that's exactly also what it was intended for, to really introduce basic concepts and workflow to help you determine if it's the right career transition for you. But if you're already convinced, it's still also really valuable to make it through that, and you can start that anytime.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so kind of on that topic, I was wondering, I was going through the Jumpstart program online, And I was wondering how long it's been up there, and maybe not to offend or guilt anyone, but did you also do that before your cohort started or before your application started? How helpful was that to you, or did that make you feel extremely more prepared, or how many other resources did you use that as?
I'll just answer the first one, which is how long it's been there. I believe we started posting a Jumpstart program in cohorts 5. Remind me what year that was. So,
It was in 2016, the beginning.
yes, that's when we started. That's when we posted it. And it's just been there ever since. We do update it periodically. So I'm gonna let Paul answer this.
Well, for us, it was put there after the application, after the admissions. So it was to help us prepare for the beginning. And there were some sessions that we could come in to ask questions in the afternoon, and yes, that definitely helped a lot. Not only for like the academic preparation, but also to like ease the nerves. We felt a lot more prepared doing it.
For me, it did definitely help. A lot of those concepts were very new to me. I had never seen many of them, so it was really important for me to like have practice. So I would say it did help.
I felt a little in the dark prior to seeing the Jumpstart, because the Jumpstart curriculum, and I actually didn't see it until after I applied or through the application process for C7, and I still also employed like Code Academy and other tutorials alongside of it if I didn't understand something from the documentation in Jumpstart. But scouring Jumpstart is how I prepared.
I definitely looked at Jumpstart, I think during phase 2 of the application, and like that helped solidify some ideas about like where I should be kind of going with this challenge. There was also, I think, sometimes there are videos up with Jumpstart, so like watching those and like getting a sense of like, all right, this is like how instruction happens in the classroom, and like this is like kind of the base of learning. And that also helped with like the application process. But I also utilize like a lot of different tutorials out there, and like I learned through, for myself, I learned through a lot of tutorials and trying things out, and like just having examples like constantly of how things work, and like being able to explore those examples and dissecting them like helped me a lot with trying to understand like, all right, I think I have like sort of a general idea of like where this is gonna go, and maybe I'll use this thing called a hash and like try to copy it but put my words in there, and like that might help me at the end. But yeah, so definitely like try out different tutorials, try out Jumpstart. Jumpstart Live also happens before you start in the classroom, which is like live instructors actually teaching you the curriculum. So like that's already online, but they're like extra help during those weeks before starting, and sometimes those videos are up. So.
So, part of my question was, how much of homework on average, like maybe 2 hours a day after school, would you say, or could it be more than that? And then the second question is, you have had previous students, and is it like okay, like if you're a parent, like can you juggle school and being a parent? Is that a possibility?
I happen to be holding the mic, so I'll answer that. Yeah, the parent. Yes, it's really hard and 100% worth it. Support, any kind of support you can arrange, anything like crazy ideas. They all end up mattering because you will need that time after class. I spend anywhere from, it so depends on the week, and also when you're working with others. A lot of our projects are, paired or in a group, and so you're communicating with your group during class and then after class as well, and just really learning how to work with others. So it can be anywhere from an hour to, I've definitely spent upwards of 3 and 4 hours on homework in an evening if I didn't understand something. I don't necessarily recommend that because after a couple hours, you're really just, you're kind of like repeating the same themes, and sometimes you just need a break. But I banked myself. I banked at least 2 hours, and if I didn't spend that much time in that night, at least I had that set aside. And the weekends can be quite a bit more. So, getting creative with childcare, transportation, family members, reaching out to your community and telling them what you're trying to do and why, and the difference it will make for your family. It's really hard to say all those things and ask for help, but it's definitely possible.
So I had a different instructor, so I'm not sure if homework is heavier now. But yeah, it was definitely doable. I did most of my homework on the bus during the commute. I had an hour and a half each way, so I did most of my homework there. I did sometimes, after the kids were in bed, I would do an hour, but I never did much more than that because I just couldn't. I mean, maybe the first weeks I did, but I quickly found out I was gonna burn out, so I set boundaries. And I did ask for support from my husband on the weekends to catch up. If I had any catching up to do, he would take care of them so I could catch up. But yeah, it is definitely doable and very worth it. And if you think 6 months, it's not that long. Like, I feel it was a sacrifice, and all the family sacrificed, but it was only 6 months. So I feel like it was very worth it.
Thanks for holding this panel. I have a question. I'm a blue collar worker. I'm not college educated. Would lack of higher education severely inhibit my chances of acceptance?
Well, they already answered, they shook their heads. No, we do have some alumni who do not have a college degree, and yeah, they graduated, they're working. One of them works for BuzzFeed in New York City. Went to New York City.
All right, that's good to hear. Thank you.
You can also have a GED. We don't care about that.
We do try to provide extra support with industry mentors and things.
Can I speak to that really super briefly? I do not have a 4-year degree. I have a technical degree. It's only 2 year, and I went to school when I could afford it. And this was just like that. If you're willing to put in the time, there is a lot of support. You have to ask for it and advocate, and just know that you're going to need it and set aside time for it, and give feedback about what you think other people in the same shoes might need. You all hold this thing.
Hey, wait, one more answer? I wanted to ask you all why you're passionate about tech, and it's because we all come from really different backgrounds, and maybe others like me are also here for a little bit of encouragement or inspiration. Well, seeing all of you is very inspiring already, but hoping that there's a short answer that you can give. I'll start.
I'm in tech because there's like literally no one like me on like my floor or in my company maybe. So like that's why I'm there. Like I'm there because I want to be there and I want to open doors for other people. And I think a lot about like what my past was like and how I still have like a community to support, and this is the way that I can do that.
I come from a film background and music background, and also was really obsessed with science as a little one, but without any guidance, and have sort of just learned about myself that if there was a way to put those two things together, I would find it over time. And I've been really delighted to find just how creative engineering can be. And I am very passionate about being asked to think very hard using my own brain about how to solve really complicated problems. It's an honor. And
Plus, I'm a woman, and women's brains are incredible, and we really need more of it. So it's just sort of a.
As far as tech goes, being the odd man out here, I grew up in it. My father's a programmer. His two brothers are programmers. His sister's a programmer. It's kind of in the family. But I went into education because I wanted to help people who otherwise would have difficulty enter this career field, be able to provide hopefully very well for their families. And ADA is a real good opportunity to help with that.
So before discovering tech, like I didn't realize that this was even a path for somebody that looked like me. Like I had never seen anybody else who looked like me do it. Like, and when I like made my first like small program that like did nothing, I was like, whoa, this is cool. So I also like want to get into tech because A, it's cool to build things, but B, like I want to show other people who look like me that like they can do it too.
I also love the logical thinking, the data-driven problem solving. I love how I get to work and then 6 hours went by, I didn't know how. Like I used to work in manufacturing before and it's completely different. I love how in tech we are like a scarce resource, like companies really value you, they give you a lot of flexibility, a lot of perks, great pay, so what else?
Something that I just wanted for myself, like just for a job in my life, was like a prerequisite was like, I want a job that will give me the opportunity to continue learning for as long as I can. And so that's what honestly really attracted me to technology and programming in general, because it's a very, for me, it's very like step-by-step process. And so I like the idea that like, not only could I get into it not knowing anything or anybody, but that I could figure it out and then I could just keep figuring it out because the industry is constantly changing and innovating. And so it was a great opportunity for me.
I got into tech and grew to love it because of the possibilities that it has. It solves problems and opens up access to a whole lot of things. And so we have software now that help vision impaired people read things, access literature that they could never have access before. We have software now where cars can drive themselves and help aging population get around. Hopefully we're safe enough one day to do that. We're still working on that. But it just opens up so many doors and so many possibilities, many of which we probably don't necessarily have in our heads today.
My question is actually very a good leeway to that. I was wondering if you all knew a sort of area of tech you wanted to go in when you started data, or if that ever changed during your first studies.
Initially, I wanted to go into data science, and then I came to Ada, and I've been able to. My team does a lot with data, millions of pieces of data. Eventually, I do want to try cybersecurity out, and I think the greatest thing about learning to program in Ada in general is that once you get your foot in the door, and once you like learn this secret language and figure out how to think, a lot of it comes a lot more easier. And like Diana said earlier, you learn the right questions to ask. And so, yeah, it just becomes a lot easier.
I don't know, but I have a degree in social work and like some background in that, and I always wanted to build software to help people, but I don't know exactly what that looks like yet.
When I went into tech, I wanted to go as far from education as possible. I didn't follow that path.
I entered interested in VR and still very much. Then also learned a lot more about the academic sort of data and math piece of it and became really fascinated with that.
Yeah, I had no idea. Yeah, like starting at Ada, you learn a lot about like web development, and I thought like, oh yeah, like maybe my internship will be similar, and I can still explore like different parts of the industry. And then I got placed in like a very heavily infrastructure like org at Uber, and like I don't even work on the app, but like I do like things about data centers and scaling and networking. I don't know, just these words. So like, but it's cool. Like I find that like low level kind of thinking really interesting, and I never would have thought of it ever before.
So the placement program is really good.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Imagine we
like,
put you where you belong.
yeah, I mean, like, I know that like Cynthia had talked about like how we get placed in our internships, and like you get to like kind of choose what kind of companies you might be interested in and like might interview with. And I didn't even have like Uber as like the company I was going to interview with. It was just like something that I ended up with, and then like that's just somewhere that I ended up being. But it's like so cool that I got to be on a team that like I can work well with, but just like I think more important than the technology, honestly, like if I'm with someone or like with people that I can work with and like who can understand like communicate with me like our goals and like get to a place where we're like happy with our product and getting it launched. Like that's much more important than just like, oh, I'm like working on some cool tech thing that like, yeah, that might be within my interest, but I don't like connect with the people I work with. So that was like, I think more important for me was just like feeling the sense of like, oh, this industry, like I can fit in here to some degree.
Just a question, sorry, about the application timeline. So after part one, how long do we have to wait to know if we get to part two?
It takes us a while to get through 400 plus applications, and we do it in a rolling method. So we don't wait till we get through all 400 to choose to move forward, and we try to really distribute looking through things. So you could, once you submit, you could hear as soon as maybe 2-3 weeks, or you could wait a while because it takes us a while to get through everything. I don't think we necessarily, I mean, you definitely won't, the maximum time we've had people wait, I'm not really sure, I remember, we do have a timeline that we try to respect, but from the end of the application date, we usually make it through most in about a month or a month and a half, but it is a long period of time, it's a lot to go through. So we definitely ask for patience. We don't really have an army that reviews 475 applications, but we try to do it justice. We try to make sure that we look through every single one of them. It just takes quite a bit of time.
Just curious, prior to starting at Ada, how proficient were you all at coding? So if you had to give yourself 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being nothing, where would you say you were at? And what's the base requirement?
I would say before Ada, I was like maybe a 2 in HTML, CSS, and a 1 in JavaScript, because those are the only classes I took. Like before the application process, I should say. And then I don't know what the requirements are.
The requirement really is that you've tried it somehow. Like, I'm not really sure, we believe at Ada that we're not really sure how you can commit to 11 months full-time of a career transition program if you have not at least tried it. So we enforce that by actually having a coding challenge so that you are trying some of it by the time you get that far. But even before that, we do encourage you. That's why we have Jumpstart out there, just always. Just so we can provide our own interpretation of this is what it means to try it and figure out if you really love it and want to do it as a profession. So I think Jumpstart sort of represents a good level of what we would love to see you try, but it's certainly not a hard requirement. Before you start, once you've been accepted, you definitely have to complete that. But we encourage you to get through as much of it as possible before you apply. And certainly by the time you get to the second phase, you will have to have done, and I think there's 3 or 4 modules in there you will have to have done already by that time.
Question. I don't know, but so given Ada's mission of wanting to bridge that gap of women in tech and minorities and spreading more diversity, are any of you kind of helping kind of continue that and contribute to that within your own company or outside of work? And if so, like what are you doing to kind of help push that forward?
So at work, I'm part of a bunch of different employee resource groups, and one of the ones I'm most particularly involved in is Uber Pride, and we do a lot of different events. Like last 2 Fridays ago, I was part of like a tech career fair that was like centered towards like LGBTQ or the queer community, looking into careers with various different companies. I mean, was one of those companies that was representing like the company. So yeah, there's like a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of other things I do outside of work that like don't relate to my job at all. Where I think a lot about like, oh, how can I use my skills to like help other nonprofits I used to be a part of, or like look into like different kind of like volunteer type of things that you can do. And that's definitely like available, and a lot of people like in my cohort and in like the ADA community have always been interested in giving back in some way. So like once you actually have time to like do that, there's definitely like so many opportunities out there to like get more involved. And there's also ADA itself, like you can come back and mentor, you could come and tutor, like there's just those ways as well, those avenues.
I do mentoring outside of ADA, but I haven't had an opportunity to kind of thought about
Yeah, so at Microsoft, we also have women's circles and also Hispanics at Microsoft, and yeah, an active member. And we also make a point to keep connected to the ADA community. Like we just organized cohort 7 come visit us, even though they're not going to be part, Microsoft is not part of their sponsors, but we still host with them and show them around and introduce them to people. So we still care very much about the ADA community.
I just started at Amazon, so I don't have much to say. But I think for me, it's just being an advocate. Like, if you decide that this is a career that you're passionate about, and you decide, however you identify, that it's important to you to see more people like yourself in this career, then you need to figure out how to get more people like yourself in this career. Whether that's talking to your Uber driver or Lyft driver and asking him like what his daughter's up to, how many kids he has, like how many of them are taking science classes, or how old they are, and telling him about ADA, or when you hopefully get in and when you're at a party and someone asks you what you're doing, making sure you don't just brush over like, oh, I'm doing a boot camp. Making sure you say, oh, I'm in a boot camp here in Seattle, ADA Developers Academy that's specifically trying to bridge the gap for women in tech and also people who identify as non-binary. I'm trying to get more people of diverse backgrounds in tech and coding. It's I think you can do that every single day, just making sure that you're an advocate for people like yourself and other people.
One last question.
What does a career path look like for ADA graduates? Do 100% of people go on to be developers, or do you have graduates go on to other areas in tech, like product management, where they're using what you learned at ADA, but maybe also combining that with experience from a prior career?
Most of our graduates do get into software development, and we work with our graduates even beyond. Not everybody places by their graduation date, so we continue and are committed to working with those that are not to find the right software development position. Software development positions come in many different flavors within that. Some are titled web developers, some are other types of developers, software development and test is also a career path, a variation of coding profession that some companies have. And there are a few that have chosen to do a technical program management path. One of our graduates in the third cohort certainly chose to do that. She got a software development job offer, but chose to do technical program management. And I probably have one or two alumni that have transitioned into that role later on. So.
All right, and we have just a couple of Twitter questions that I think we answered, but I'll quickly go over those answers again. Please describe any changes in the admissions process for cohort 9. So the coding challenge is going to be different as well as the technical questions. And the last question, will applications be reviewed on a rolling basis? Yeah.
Yes, they are on a rolling basis. It's hard for me to predict the timing just because it depends on the volume of reviews that happen, and that really depends on the time of the volunteers that help us do that. And so that's why it's very difficult for me to peg down the time.
Well, thank you to our panel for being here today. Thank you to all of you. So our window does open next Monday, and it's going to be open for 3 weeks. It closes on September 11th. We hope to see your applications soon. Thank you.